Welcome. I would love to introduce you to one of my favorite poses, Bakasana, crow pose. Bakasana has a number of challenges and I love working with it because it allows me to strengthen my wrists, to practice my bandhas, to work on my shoulder strength, to work on lifting myself up, and to be in an inversion and balance. So a lot of possibility to practice asana combined into one specific posture. I'm going to show you the pose first and then we'll break it down. So Bakasana is a crow, and we're going to see it from the side because that way it's better for you to look at the details. I'm going to spread my fingers really wide to get a good grip on the mat, and then I'm going to bend my elbows here a little to make it easier for myself, and I'll place my knees as high as I can get them on the back of my upper arms into my armpits, and then I reach forward with my heart until my feet come off the mat. And then I lift my feet up as much as I can and lift all of myself up as much as I can. My gaze goes forward onto the mat. The neck is long, shoulders are away from the ears. And as you can tell by my voice sounding a little bit strained, it takes effort, and that's okay, because Hatha Yoga is about using our physical body to focus and to get the mind, the spirit, and the body in alignment. So how do we break this one down? We can practice after warming up the wrists, which we can do with some circles where I put some weight, but not all of my body weight, onto the wrists and make circles with my shoulders in both directions. Maybe I flip the backs of my hands onto the mat and do the same thing to stretch out my wrists a little. I sit back to stretch the tops of the wrists, and I can interlace my fingers to get a bit more movement into the joints and to loosen up the joints. When we practice Bakasana, it is really important to maintain an active grip on the mat, because if we didn't grip, then we had most of our weight spread out on the palm, and the palm is a smaller surface than if I can use all the surface until the tips of my fingers. So by being active on my fingertips and by gripping the mat actively that way, I have a larger surface that my weight gets spread on, and it's easier to find balance in that larger surface. Now when I practice Bakasana, I want to have about a foot of distance in between my hands and the tips of my toes. From here, I bend my elbows towards my shins and I bend my knees towards my upper arm. If this is a new practice, then I would suggest to simply start leaning onto the backs of the upper arms with part of the body weight, just to get a feel for what it's like to have some weight in those arms and on those hands. Maybe I can help the student by suggesting to lean forward a bit more. And if that still feels okay, maybe I can take one foot off the mat for a moment and try what that feels like. And then maybe play with the other one. How is it to lift that one? And then take a break in between. Circle the wrists, one direction and the other direction. Circle the shoulders. Maybe I interlace the fingers in between to open up the front of the chest to have a counter stretch. And then we do another round of the practice. So this time we focus on the bandha that is going to help me make the posture more compact and maybe being able to retain it a little longer. So same build up. I bend my elbows towards my shins. I put the knees on the backs of the upper arms. I start leaning forward and I engage my Mula Bandha, the lock at the perineum. So I squeeze my perineum slightly, I contract it, and that gives my body a bit more stability in this pose. And as I slowly lift my feet off the floor, I keep engaging the perineum. I keep pulling my feet closer up, and I straighten my arms as far as available to me. My crow pose is not that strong, so I can't get my arms all the way straight. I'm still practicing it. And if I manage to get to my limit of what I'm capable of in this practice, I will see progress over time and the pose will get stronger. Now, a couple of things to watch out for in Bakasana is, first of all, your wrists. So make sure to always circle the wrists, stretch them afterwards, give them a bit of relief, maybe a slightly pull out the hands with a bit of a wiggle to get some relief in here. The second part is to make sure I keep my shoulders far away from my ears, because if I get all scrunched up in here, I get a very tense neck. So in my setup of the pose, I'm going to position the arms, I'm going to pull my shoulders away from my ears. I'm going to reach forward with my heart until I can find the balance point here. And then only do I concern myself with lifting up higher. That is one way to build it up. The other piece is the more compact we can get once we are in the air, the easier it might become to balance it, because setting the Mula Bandha keeps the energy compact. So both of those things, leaning forward, trusting myself in that balance, and pulling the energy upward and close together, helps that crow take flight. A beautiful progression out of Bakasana is to jump back into a chaturanga position. And that used to be scary for me until a teacher that I trusted convinced me that it was actually not so hard and that I could absolutely do it. So it is something that I very much like to practice in my classes now, and I encourage my students to do as well. So for being able to jump back from crow pose, you want to make sure that you have enough space towards the back, which we can test by bringing the feet back. And then we have to be airborne just long enough to straighten out those legs. So if I'm up here in Bakasana, I press back and I end in a chaturanga position. And then I can add a back bend and maybe take a little rest in a child's pose in Balasana here. As I mentioned at the beginning, I love Balasana as a posture to practice because it combines so many different elements. It has the element of strength, the element of working with the bandhas, the element of balance, it has an inversion in it, and it continues to be challenging. Thank you. Namaste.